You know what's mind-blowing? Every second of every day, our bodies are hosting billions of microscopic victory celebrations in our blood vessels, and most of us have no idea it's even happening.
Well, that's quite an intriguing way to look at it. What exactly do you mean by cellular celebrations?
So, imagine your blood vessels are like these massive sports stadiums, and inside them, there's this incredible process called vasodilation that's basically like transitioning from an intense game to the most coordinated victory party you've ever seen.
That's such a creative analogy. What triggers these cellular celebrations in our blood vessels?
Well, it's fascinating because just like how a game needs a final whistle, our bodies get specific signals. Maybe oxygen levels are low, or carbon dioxide is too high, or blood pressure needs adjusting. These are essentially our body's way of saying, game over, time to celebrate.
So, how does our body actually coordinate this transition? It must be incredibly complex.
You know what's really cool? We have these internal party planners called the parasympathetic nervous system, along with these molecules, nitric oxide and prostacyclin, that work like expert event coordinators. They send out these cellular invitations through something called intracellular signaling.
Tell me more about nitric oxide. It sounds like it plays a pretty crucial role in all of this.
Oh, nitric oxide is like the VIP sponsor of this whole celebration. It's actually so important that its discovery led to a Nobel Prize in medicine. It triggers this enzyme called guanylyl cyclase, which is basically like the head party planner that gets everything rolling by boosting something called cyclic GMP production.
Well, that's fascinating about the Nobel Prize connection. How does this cellular party actually start to unfold?
So here's where it gets really interesting. There's this whole cascade of events that happens. The nitric oxide activates these enzymes that create these chemical messengers, and at the same time, there's this other molecule called prostacyclin that's working through a different pathway, converting ATP to CAMP.
Hmm, it sounds like there are multiple systems working together here. How do they all coordinate?
Well, think of it like this. In our cellular stadium, calcium acts as the head coach. For the celebration to really get going, this coach needs to leave the field. The calcium gets sent back to what scientists call the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Think of it as the locker room. Or it's completely pumped out of the cell entirely.
So, what happens to all the cellular players once their coach leaves?
That's where it gets really fascinating. Once calcium leaves, this protein called calmodulin, think of it as the team captain, also steps down. Then MLCK, which is like the assistant coach, stops giving orders to these tiny cellular structures called myosin heads, our players in this scenario.
Well, that's quite a sophisticated system. What happens next in this cellular celebration?
Here's where another key player comes in. There's this protein called myosin light chain phosphatase, or MLCP, that acts like a team physiotherapist. It actually removes the energy from these cellular players through a process called dephosphorylation. It's like telling all the players, okay, time to rest and relax.
That's really interesting how our bodies have such precise control mechanisms. What's the actual benefit of all this happening?
Well, the immediate effect is that when these cellular players relax, the blood vessel can dilate. Imagine the stadium opening up more gates to let people flow through easily. This increased blood flow can deliver more oxygen where it's needed, help lower blood pressure, or even assist in cooling down the body during exercise.
So, how does our body know when to end this cellular celebration?
That's another fascinating part. Our bodies have these enzymes called phosphodisterases that act like the cleanup crew. They break down those chemical messengers we talked about, cGMP and CAMP, which gradually brings everything back to normal. It's like resetting the stadium for the next game.
Well, that's quite remarkable how precisely orchestrated this whole process is. Are there any medical applications that take advantage of this mechanism?
Actually, yes. Many common medications work by targeting different parts of this process. For instance, medications for erectile dysfunction, like Viagra, work by inhibiting those phosphodiesterase enzymes we just talked about, essentially keeping the celebration going longer. And nitroglycerin used for angina works by releasing nitric oxide.
That's such a practical application of understanding these cellular mechanisms. What other conditions might be affected by this process?
Well, this vasodilation process is crucial for managing blood pressure, preventing heart disease, and even plays a role in exercise performance. Athletes and their trainers pay close attention to factors that can enhance nitric oxide production naturally, like certain foods and specific types of exercise.
How fascinating that something happening at such a microscopic level can have such significant impacts on our health.
Exactly. And you know what's really mind bending? This process is happening right now in all of us as we speak. Every blood vessel in our body is constantly adjusting, fine tuning this balance between constriction and dilation, all orchestrated by these incredible molecular mechanisms.
Well, that certainly gives me a new appreciation for what's happening inside our bodies every moment.
And here's something else to consider. Understanding these mechanisms has led to numerous medical breakthroughs. Scientists are constantly discovering new ways to target these pathways to treat various conditions from hypertension to migraines.
That really puts into perspective how important basic research into these cellular processes can be.
Absolutely right. And as we wrap up, I think it's worth noting that this elegant system of cellular celebration, as we've called it, is just one example of the countless sophisticated processes happening in our bodies every second. It really makes you appreciate the complexity and beauty of human biology.